We want to bring in the keynote speaker. He's going to talk to us on legal assistance and empowerment for women in innovation. And I have the person, Reverend Dr. Cornell A. Edmonds, Esquire, an attorney for that matter. He is the senior pastor of UN Church of the Covenant, New York. And I think I saw the wife walking somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, Reverend, you have the podium.
I'm going to put the mic up so that I can keep my hands free.
No problem.
I want to begin by thanking Dr. Ada, Dr. Sanchez, our esteemed guests, for inviting me to be a part of this this panel, this discussion. While at the same time, I want to ask, what were people thinking? Why would you ask a man to offer a keynote on strategies for women to lay claim upon their freedom? As a lawyer, I learned very, very early on, in order to get the right answer, you have to ask the right question. And so we learned to ask the right question. We learned how to speak, but as you became more experienced, you learned when not to speak. And you then learned to work and develop a case. And the way that you worked and developed the case, you started with a single question. What is the issue? What is the issue? And I think that is the critical thing for us to contemplate upon this morning. You have nearly 10,000 women gathering at or around the United Nations in 2023 in pursuit of gender equality. What is the issue? It's been said, if you do not know your history, you are doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
On March 31st, 1776, Abigail Adams, who is yet to become an American citizen because America at that time did not exist, she wrote to her husband, John Adams, one of the founding fathers of America and a future president of the United States. And when I say founding father, I am highlighting one of the issues. Because if it is a nation that is developed by fathers, then its whole legal system is going to protect who? Men. And any status that a woman would have would be based upon a relationship with a man. And so right from the beginning, the light should have gone on. And it did for Abigail Adams. She wrote to her husband, and I quote, "Remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, We are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation. To become a lawyer is to become trained and educated to participate in a pre-existing system of which we had no voice or representation in the creation of. And that was important during the American Civil Rights Movement. And it was important for Dr. King to understand that, because the very system that was being used to keep people in oppression, in a system that had legalized chattel slavery, were the very laws that were being used to keep women in oppression. And to train one to be an advocate around those laws is to equip one to be an advocate for your very own oppression. And so you have to understand and go back, and as we begin to talk about advocacy and the use of technology and the intersectionality, we have to talk and think about what is the issue. And the issue is that women have been forced to exist within a system that was not designed for you. It was not designed for you. And if you are seeking to be an advocate in a system that is not designed for you, it is important to pay particular heed to the words that Abigail Adams said nearly 250 years ago. We are determined to foment a rebellion. And part of that rebellion would be a rebellion of values, a rebellion in values, because every legal system is based upon a set of values, expectations, mores, customs that make those who are in charge the most comfortable. 10,000 women are coming to advocate for equality rather than to advocate for freedom. What is the issue? To be equal to a man is not to be free. To be equal to a man is to be equal to the very person, the very spirit, the very corrupt moral attitude that has held people in bondage and oppression for centuries. And so it is important that we then spot the issue. And the issue, I believe, is freedom. As a man, one of the most important steps I took towards freedom was to marry a woman who was more powerful than myself, who was smarter than me, who was more capable than me, who could push me to be more than I ever expected that I could be. And if that woman did not exist, then I would not have been marrying up, but I would have been marrying down. And are there men out there that can do the same thing for you? And if not, you are marrying down. You are aspiring to be less than what God has created you to be. What is the issue? Dr. King was very, very astute in coming to identify the issues that were important to the freedom and liberation of a people. And I will be quick. I've reduced my remarks from 39 pages to 8 pages, and now I'm going to reduce it to 10 minutes or less. Amen, Dr. Otter?
Right.
On April 25th, 1957, and I've left out a lot of the stuff leading up to this, Dr. King gave an address. And the title of the address was "The Role of the Church in Facing the Nation's Chief Moral Dilemma." The role of the church in facing the nation's chief moral dilemma. And he kind of flipped things. And he talked not about law first and then technology, but he talked about technology first and then the shortcomings of the law. And I'm going to read a little bit from his remarks, because when he spoke of issues of racism and oppression, he very well could have been talking about issues of gender empowerment. And as I reread this, I took out those words and put in words of gender empowerment. And it was amazing how seamless those remarks would be once you understood what is the issue. He says, there can be no gain in saying of the fact America has brought the world to an awe-inspiring threshold of the future. That's where we are, ladies. That's where we are. And that's the technology that we have and that is available to us. And to not have access to that technology and to not be able to use it in a way where you strive towards freedom becomes the first sign that there is a moral dilemma, because that technology is either being withheld or people are being motivated to misuse it. But it's not being used for one's freedom. And he goes on and he says, as one studies the majestic sweep of American history, he cannot help but be astounded and fascinated by the tremendous progress that has been made in so many areas. The scientific and technological advances made by this nation still astound and stagger the imagination. Through our technological genius, we have been able to construct skyscrapers in buildings with their prodigious towers steeping heavenward. Through our advances in medical science, we have been able to cure many dread diseases and thereby prolong our lives. And he goes on to say that what is lacking is that our moral genius has not kept pace with our scientific genius. And so it is a call for a rebellion, a moral rebellion, a rebellion in which people demand clarity in terms of what is right and what is wrong. 10,000 women should not have to come every year to demand gender equality. There is something wrong, objectively wrong. But if you're not challenging what is objectively wrong with a system, you become a participant and at worst co-complicit. And the best way to maintain oppression is to train the oppressed to maintain that system.
Yes.
The best way to maintain oppression is to train the oppressed to maintain that system. And so before you begin to gather mass young ladies to be trained in the law, first begin to gather them to think about what is the issue. Because when they think about what is the issue, they can use that legal training, and when it has intersectionality with technology, to be transformative of a world, not simply to bring about gender equity, but to bring about the common good. Because if men prosper and women do not, or if women prosper and men do not, the system remains out of balance, and it is the next generation who suffers. And so we have to break that down and then start to use the scientific advances that are more than any time in human history in this world to begin to challenge, to have that rebellion against a system that Abigail Adams knew from the beginning would be corrupted by men who have a tendency to be tyrannical. I would be tyrannical. But my wife stops me. Anytime I have a tyrannical thought, she puts me in line. And she puts me in line not because she is worried about being oppressed, but she is worried about my own self-oppression. And if I self-oppress, then all I'm going to do in that relationship is pull her down. And she's not going to risk that happening. Women should not risk that happening, should not risk participating in a system that is at best designed to pull you down and has laws to maintain and protect the system. Whenever the system says, well, let's set up some goals and maybe establish a committee, it is usually the ethos of those who created the system because they do not want any rebellious activity upsetting the workings of the system. And so you slow it down. Goals can slow things down. If something is urgent and immediate, it is addressed immediately and automatically. That is where the resources are spent. That is where the priorities are placed. And so what I want to say to you this morning, and I believe I've already gone over my time, is that it is important that you think about what the issues are. And the issues are one of morality. It's issues of morality and evil. Dr. King broke it down when he said in that speech, the first issue that brings about gender bias and inevitably makes for equality is that the foundation of the system, there is something wrong with it. That is the first issue. There is something morally wrong with it. There is something evil that is embedded in it. And you have to see that. The second thing, why we have gender bias and why we have to address it, is that it scars, in Dr. King's words, both the soul of the man and the soul of the woman. We are all being hurt by gender bias. And you have to convince men of that fact. That in eradicating gender bias, it is not for our benefit, but it is for your benefit. Because the bias that you've created in a system that is morally corrupt, it scars your very soul. And you will never be who God has created you to be as you walk the earth with a scarred and corrupt soul. And he said, the third point that we have to be mindful of, and I will end with this, is that gender bias is evil because it depersonalizes the woman. Gender bias causes men and boys to look upon women as a thing to be used and not a person to be respected.
Yes.
And if you are part of a system where young men and boys are being trained to disrespect you, some of the same young boys and men that you've given birth to, that you are weaning in your households, being part of a system that is being trained to disrespect and depersonalize you. You have to ask, what is the issue? What is going on here? And adopt the spirit that Abigail Adams declared before America even became a nation. A nation that says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution, the basis for our laws, the Constitution that says all people are created equal, but you are coming together to advocate for gender equality. What? is the issue.
Issue.
Thank you.
Oh, my God.